Put it on this computer.
This meeting is being recorded.
Greetings, we're back with Preservative Talk video, and I'm here, David Allen Carmichael, with my friend and co-host, William Tell, who again will give us great overtures. And we're going to talk about enumeration at birth. This is enumeration at birth and how to fix it, how to unenumerate part 2, where we're going to show you an example of somebody who filled out the right forms to make sure that at the hospital their child was not numbered, but the tendency is to make little clumsy me mistakes that perpetuates this enumeration at birth plan. You could say scheme. I think it's more, scheme's probably a better word, but that's what we're going to get back into. So you got anything else to say before we get here and start looking at my cute little outline?
No, I don't think so yet.
Okay, good. Well, or either way. Now, my little, on my little window, I'm supposed to have a little share button. But, oh, it's recording. Well, that's good. But there's supposed to be this little green button. There it is, share screen. I'm having to go the old
I see it online.
Okay. I'm having to go old school and click the actual menu. So here we are. The last thing we talked about in our last exciting episode, well, actually the same episode, part 1, we went through the Code of Federal Regulations and talked about where essentially what it is that they do. They collect money and they put it in an account. It's an account record number. It's not your number. So this is where we have access, where you used to access. We're going to see, as William said, and I said maybe scheme is the better word. What I'm going to be showing you is a current operations manual table of contents shown on their government's website that excludes the procedures for unnumbering your child. And then I'm going to show you the procedures that are there, but you'll see the numbers on the procedures that are there don't match the numbers on the table of contents under the program's operations manual. So I'm going to open that, that website. I'm going to stop sharing my outline.
I have a few comments about this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before you get into the steps, based on the fact that it's not your number, we've already covered that. We gave the reference. Did you give a reference for that? Do we need to give a reference?
We showed it on the video. I don't have it off the top of my head.
All right. So it's not your number. It's their number. But so to make life simple for some people, other people won't be satisfied with this. They want to go through all the steps, etc. But for some people, if you can understand that this is not your number, you can simply stop claiming it. You can simply stop living in life as if it is your number when in fact it's not your number. And that would be the simplest, fastest solution to the problem, i.e., no, I don't have, or no, my son doesn't have a social security number. Now, you're still going to run into the people who want to impose and force a number on you and believe that you absolutely must have a number. You can't exist on this planet. But that's a little different than taking steps, which you're going to get into, right, to go through a process and, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
As a principle. And again, every time we speak, there's little things that William said that would create an entire episode on it. For instance, I was the chief petty officer in the Navy, and I came to a conclusion, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be identifying with this thing. And I found myself being whisked out of the Navy. I found myself unemployed. So there's certain catastrophes that will come with your confession. But sounds scary, sounds horrible. We'll do a different episode on what happened. What happened? Very interesting stuff. But so I want to show you this, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And this is their operations manual. And I want to show you here, it says 10205.095. And it says this is a procedure. I'm not going to go to the procedure for somebody trying to talk to a specific employee. Notice it's numbered 95. Go down to the next one, 100. How long does it take to get an SSN card? What I'm going to show you in a minute is there were previous assignments of the same numbers that are particularly used for unnumbering a numbered child. And they're not here. They've got a process for unnumbering a child's name being put on one of their record numbers, and it doesn't exist suddenly. What's up with that? So let's go ahead, and I'm going to unshare this and then go back to my outline. We'll actually see back on the outline the number of the regulation that gives you information about whose number it is. And that is right here. So 42 Code of Federal Regulations, section 422.103. So that's what that is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you, I call this the most recent old POMS, the old policy manual from the Social Security. Now notice the number. It is 00205.100B. So I showed you 205.100. I showed you, okay, long story. But the difference is here, I noticed on the numbers, this old manual started with a 002. The new manual starts with 102. So it's like revision. It's revision 1 or something like that. So let me open this document. I'm going to stop sharing my presentation, and I'm going to share this procedure and to show you what it looks like. And I've used this, and again, the document that we wrote to the Social Security Administration over my grandchild is, you're going to see that in a minute. But so here they have RM 00905-100B and policy. SSA does not change, void, or cancel SSNs. It's actually a quasi-true and quasi-false statement. Special situations, SSA will delete the applicant information from the SSN record. You know, your problem solved. If the applicant information is gone off the record, guess what? It doesn't associate with you. So be careful of the language. Say, for instance, you call, I'd like to know how to cancel, void, or change the SSN. And most people say assigned to my child. Now, we realize that it's not the proper language there. But they'll say, oh, we never do that. And they'll stop. They won't say, but we will delete the child's information off the record. They don't do that. They'll just tell you, they'll speak in such a way that you believe there's no hope. Now, procedure, a parent may object when a child is assigned an SSN.
Comment.
Right? Yeah, what were you going to say?
Yeah, before you go any further, this is something I think that's critical to mention and make an issue out of for our listeners, because this applies not only to the process you're discussing right now, but it applies to each and every time you deal with government at any level ever, no matter what it is. And that is, to reiterate what you just said, government has a way of communicating with you. Number one, they typically tell you how it's going to be. Okay. But they don't tell you everything. So they tell you what they want you to know, and that's all they tell you. Number two, when you ask questions, they will answer your question, generally speaking, in a way that leads toward the first point, which is what they want you to know, what they want you to do. And they won't give you additional information as a general rule. So you have to understand that. And that means that when you deal with government at any level, you absolutely must do your homework and ask questions. So when you come in, you say, well, this is what I want to do. And they say, well, we don't do that. And we say, well, are there, the next obvious question, for example, would be, well, are there any kinds of situations in which you will do that? Now they either have to outright lie, or now they have to give you information they didn't give you the first time you asked them. So you get the idea. We can make an actual, show out of this subject
Well,
right here.
yeah, but it's going to show in the document.
Yeah.
Just watch what happens here.
Okay.
So here we go. Step 1, explain that the child will need an SSN by at least age 2 if she will be listed as a dependent on an income tax return. Now, remember what they said in that letter to my friend Paul, is they said, we have no authority to discuss anybody else's stuff, but nonetheless, they'll come and do this. Watch what they say here. If the parent accepts this explanation and will keep the SSN card, stop. Right? So they're not just going to go, oh, well, how far are you committed to this? You know, are you really sure you want your child's name off this? They're not going to do that. They're not going to be like a normal Christian loving, they're going to act as a robot. You're going to behave the following way. If this is not acceptable, go to step 2. So if the parent says, I don't care about the taxes thing, just get my child's name off the record. If this is not acceptable, go to step 2. Explain that on a SSH record, the account will remain dormant unless earnings are posted on the record. See, they're baiting you. Well, there's no real problem. If the parent accepts this explanation, we'll keep the card. Stop. If the parent accepts the explanation but does not want the SSN card, take the card and destroy the card. Explain that when the application is later made for an SSN card, let me scroll down. I got a little operational window pop-up that's in front of my reading. Explain that when the application is later made for an SSN card, the same number will be assigned. Ooh, how's that? That's a little weird. So if they just accept that explanation and want to give the card back, take the card, but they're basically telling you there's still a record there. If the parent insists that we delete the SSN record, notice how they tell you to stop and they're going to keep you on the hook. If the parent insists that we delete the SSN record, explain that the deletion action may take several months. Well, it's going to take a while, right? You may be delayed or denied. That's what they say on the passport. Document the parent's objection. Advise the parent that the case must be sent to central office for review. Now, hopefully they're saying this lovingly and not sternly, like making you feel bad, like some people who are trying to sell a timeshare to you and you don't want it. Explain to the parent that if we delete the applicant information from the SSN record, a subsequent SSN request, likely before the child is age 2, will result in a different SSN. Thank you. That's what I wanted. Why did you burn 15 minutes of my time? In addition, if and when the parent files for an SSN for the child in the future, he or she should enter no in item 10 on the SS5 form. Forward all material pertinent to situation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a mailing address here, right? Social Security Administration, et cetera. Comments, William?
My head's spinning.
Spinning? Too much to think about and say.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It just, I told you this story last time, and I don't guess I'll bring it up now, but I was having flashbacks to a particular experience I had with something like this and how it went. But in the end, I told you what the result was, so
right.
You have to be persistent, and you can't,
Yes.
You have to know why you're there. You have to know what your goal is, and you have to be determined to cross the finish line, because you're going to find all kinds of obstacles and challenges along the way, period.
If they stick around for a while and watch these videos, I'm going to show certain people a form the U.S. Justice Department said sent to the U.S. Treasury Department with my name on it, telling them to draft a 6-figure check to me. And in that number block, they put the term not applicable. How's that? How's that? What's up with that? Who opened the curtain and showed the presence of Mr. Oz or whatever his name is? It's a reality check that we're kind of opening a big can of worms here for people. However, if you're walking in faith and obedience and sacrifice in the life of Christ, and you're wanting to be obedient, and when things are bothering your conscience or whatever, and you've got this challenge between supporting the institution that God has instituted. First Peter chapter 2, verse 13. And because I go Romans, you start quoting Romans and people really freak out because they're not, getting the whole scripture. But you're upholding this institution and obeying God, and they're coming in conflict. Well, guess what? If it's lawful, it's not going to conflict with God's requirements. So if it's not conflicting, if it is conflicting with God's requirements, something's fishy. So This is one way we're going to be showing you how to solve this problem. You're about to say something, and I'm going to show them this other section 205.095, show them what that looks like. So go ahead.
No, I'm good right now.
Okay. So the other one that I used, this was old. I think the one I just showed you, the newer old version of the policy manual. It is, so what I did in the letter that I wrote, and you'll see, I think I actually cited this one because this is what I have. And this is a 1995 version. So SSN assigned through enumeration at birth and objection, and then the procedures. It goes into the same thing. So here's the procedure for the request, obtain and destroy, etc. And here's some notes. So I actually got this off the internet where somebody went through the painstaking effort to get a hold of this and share it with people. And I think this one that I have here has probably got a little more detail. And the newer version that I showed you previously. And again, I don't want to go into somebody else's correspondence because I read this correspondence, and you can find this online. You can do a search and come up with this document here. Oh, the sharing is stopped. Okay, great.
Hey, let's go back to the beginning there for a second, where it says policy of the Social Security Administration.
Same screen?
Just at the beginning where it says policy.
Right. Hold on. I need to.
I can tell you what it says,
Okay. Now
you scrolled past it, and
right.
what it says is the Social Security Administration does not cancel or void Social Security numbers.
Right.
I think that bears a little bit of discussion because.
Okay. Well, let's just discuss it because rather than go back there, because I'm having operational crisis here. So. I'm having technical difficulties. So rather than to deal with my technical difficulties, we'll just discuss it.
Yeah.
So go ahead and say what you're going to say, because I thought of something right away as you thinking about something you just said.
Yeah.
About what they actually do.
So, well, and this goes back to something that I said earlier, and you commented on, and that is that all these things, in this particular case, your child being enumerated, but in other cases that are equally applicable. The scriptures say that before you go to war, before a king goes to war, he has to count the cost. And so before you go to war with the beast, and before we're likening this to going to war, you have to count the cost. What's the cost? Well, you're going to tell your story and let people know how it came out in a future, show. And I have stories as well. We could tell a lot of stories between the two of us. So I think, how it comes out when you belong to the Most High, it always comes out good. Read Romans 8:28. But when you're facing the challenge, it may seem scary. And there may be temporary inconveniences and headaches and things that maybe you don't want to deal with. But the bottom line is that if in fact the policy of the Social Security Administration is that they do not cancel or void Social Security numbers, then that gives further weight to one avenue of approach. And really, I don't care what a person does. They can do whatever they want to do, whatever they feel convicted to do. But it gives weight to the suggestion that I made earlier that, you just simply let it die because it's not yours. It never was yours. And if you begin to disassociate, I mean, you immediately disassociate yourself from it and you never use it again, well, it shouldn't come up again because nobody knows your social security number, your
Well,
social
I'm going to
security.
interrupt you there because it does come up. So
Well,
I'm going back 25 years. It does
let me
come up.
clarify. Let me
Yeah.
clarify. It shouldn't come up. What I meant in context was that when you go to the bank, let's say, and you open a bank account, and Joe Banker or Susie Banker, they don't know you from Adam, so it's going to come up because they're going to want your social security number. But if you say I don't have one, then they don't know you from Adam. They don't know whether or not you had one, and they're going to do what they do when they're faced with that situation. The same as if you went through a particular process.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you again.
Yeah,
I'm talking firsthand experience.
right.
So I cancel and actually void my original driver's license. So they wouldn't, so under the law of Virginia, it's this procedure I took, it's as if I never applied for a driver's license. So their whole, their whole record is supposed to be, as a matter of law, void. And I registered to vote, and the Mark Earley was the Virginia Attorney General. He's kind of famous in Christian circles. And he got involved when I went to register to vote, and they told me I couldn't because the Virginia Constitution says you got to give an SSN, if any.
Mhm.
Well, now you argue over if any. Okay, so they wouldn't register me to vote. And then Mark Earley ordered them as Attorney General, give his legal opinion that they needed to let me register to vote. So they did. And I had a voter registration number that was just this number that's totally random, sequential or whatever. And then a few years later, the DMV took over, facilitating getting people to register to vote. They changed my voter registration. They put a social security number on it, notwithstanding that their records were void for error. And the specific error was a social security number, and they perpetuated it. I had to cancel my voter registration. So if you've been associated with a number before, that's why this enumeration at birth canceling thing is critical. You've got to poke them in the eyes to whatever mechanism you have to blank the record. And now I'm going to add one more thing that's not in the outline.
So question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the question is, based on the justification you just gave, I get it, and I'm sure people understand. But how does that work with their policy that they don't do that? So either they do it or they don't do it. Which is
it needs to be fixed. I will go there. I wrote a letter to Mr. Obama, the White House, and I said, "Here's my problem. These guys, we got to fix their record. They won't answer my mail." So I'm writing the Social Security Administration for decades, up this point, 16, 18 years, something like that. And they're not answering my mail. So I wrote the White House. The White House correspondent sent something Social Security Administration. Somebody at the high level of Social Security Administration wrote me at home. And they started explaining to me things. Now, part of it was wrong. You could tell where they're making a statement is just wrong. But what they said, they gave an example of an Amish person. So an Amish person who wants to go work for an employer who's begging for a SSN, instead of just telling them, fill out your dumb form, put that I'm Amish or whatever, and just don't pay the tax. What they do is the IRS has set up this thing where the Amish person gets a letter from the IRS to send to the employer. But the IRS won't give you that letter unless you apply for a social security number first. Social Security Administration takes the applicant, sticks their name in the record, issues a number, and the Amish person, this is what I learned from Social Security Administration in writing. They send it to the IRS. They ask for this letter that says they're Amish, don't take out FICA. And then they get the letter back from the IRS, and then they write to the Social Security Administration, say, hey, I'm Joe Smith. I requested that you issue this control number so I could get this letter from the IRS. I'm not a participant in Social Security. I don't want the number. So what they do is they call it suppressing the record. So there's a number record, but they suppress it. And then they write a letter to the Amish person saying, you can honestly say you don't have a Social Security number. So they called it a control number. Now, this is silly. Now, before you just they get a letter from the IRS. You know, they'd write and say, hey, I'm Amish. I don't work for a U.S. employer. I'm not subject to the FICA tax. And I just need a letter for you to explain to them what's up. And it was just all in writing, none of this enumeration at application stuff. So there is a process that they're doing it right now for Amish people. Well, why can't they do it for me? Why can't they do it for you or anybody else who was enumerated at birth, whose parents thought they knew what they were doing, but they didn't because they're being deceived? So in my mind, it's on my bucket list to find a mechanism to compel them to suppress records for reasons of religion and not just pragmatic Amishisms.
Yeah. And my question would be, and you may have the answer, but why would you want your record suppressed when your record should be eliminated, destroyed?
Well, yeah, but it's their record. It's their property. It's their piece of paper.
Right. And I'm
So here's, if I've had like the social, say the driver's people, they say because of 666, we can't give you a driver's license unless you embrace this number as an element of your identity. So of course I don't have a driver's license. It's got canceled from its, from ab initio, from its inception. I used that process, but they won't give me a driver's license. And they say until the Social Security Administration says you don't have a number. Well, they don't do that unless you can get them to suppress it. So I have to live apart from the number and just come what may. And then of course, we need to get back into this because we only have so much time to show the procedure. But of course, there's the current case, Carmichael versus Pompeo, where I'm suing them, where they revoked my passport because I didn't give them a Social Security number. So there's work to be done. And my hope is that I'm going to get some work done that helps other people. I'm going to knock things over. I'm going to pull the plow a bit so other people don't have to. They can operate according to their convictions without coming up with a new vocation of fighting the damnable number of the beast. So as a reminder, click share, like, subscribe, support at streamlabs.com, David Allen Carmichael. And then, so here we go. We're going to get to this form. And I have to stop sharing my current thing. And then I'm going to share. And
a new share.
Yeah, a new share. I'm going to do a new share. If I can, there's like there used to be this cute green button. And it disappeared. Okay, so here, what I'm going to share is a form that the hospital gives when your child is born. And I'm going to show you the example. So in this case, the top of the form, it says father's full name and all that. I blanked that out. Father's identification number, the man put SSN. They wanted SSN, and he put religious prohibition. So he didn't give a driver's license, passport, or anything. He just no number. And I thought that was quite savvy. And it talks about his place of birth and everything. So this is basically a form that you're going to fill out. They're going to go get a birth certificate. They're going to send it out. So we have 10 minutes to complete this segment. Now look what he says. There's a place here where it says, I got to find, okay, here we are, the bottom, number 49. Do you wish 49. A social security number for this child? Yes or no? He clicks no. I request a social security card so you can get a number without a card. He says no. And it says he needs a signature. And the problem is if you put the word no here, they don't know if that's your signature or not. Then mail the social security card too? And he put no. So the reasonable person would go, I think he's serious. No, no, no. Now, the problem is they don't know what your signature looks like. So writing anything in the signature areas it may not be the best idea. Have you have any comments on this before I show the letter that solved the problem?
Well, you could just line out 49A and then put your initials above the line out and leave the signature space blank.
Good. Excellent. Not just good, but excellent. So I'm stopped sharing this. And now I'm going to go back to my handy dandy presentation, which you can't see, but I'm clicking the link to my to the letter that we sent that solved the problem. Share screen, and here's the letter. Information redacted. So in this letter, it's to, at the time, the commissioner of the Social Security Administration at the main office. This is, I don't know whether this is the service address, but it really doesn't matter because this worked. So regarding parent objection to enumeration at birth, I'm going to read this. I object to my child's name being associated with your records. Contrary to my express directive to the health provider at my child's birth, I'm returning the card that you erroneously sent to me subsequent to that health provider's violation of law. Remove my child's name and all other information related to him for your records. And then I told the statement of facts. My wife delivered the child. Prior to that, they gave me the form. On the form, I indicated religious prohibition. For item 49, do you wish a social security number for this child? I clearly marked no. And then et cetera. It says that no was used several times. The hospital violated the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, U.S. public law, et cetera. And they communicated electronically health information, identity information, contrary to my express directive. Now, the kind of thing is you got to tell them that something went wrong, and they know that, oh, this person could actually sue us on this. There's enough information to know that there might be standing in a United States court. And then watch what happens. Because we knew that they were going to say, we didn't want them coming back with a letter that says, well, the child needs one if he wants to get claimed for taxes on the IRS. So we didn't want that exchange of correspondence to happen. So here's the statement. I'm aware that there's no law that requires a person to have an SSN. So I'm the typist here, but I quoted, and it's my son-in-law signing it. I quoted their policy statement right out of their own documents. And then I cited the policy procedure manual, right? Parent objection assignment of that. And it says, I read it and I don't need anyone to explain steps 1 through 6. I'm aware of the difficulties associated with doing things without identifying with an ISM. I affirm at each step that I emphatically object to my child's name being associated with an SSN. I do not want the card. I don't want an SSN for the child. And I insist you delete the information. I mean, you got to be a little bit like, I'm serious kind of thing, so that if it ever does come up in court, a jury can say, yeah, this is a no-brainer. Nobody should be giving the guy any hassles. So it talks about the correspondence. It actually cites the Privacy Act and the HIPAA Act. And then finally, the erroneous submission of my son's name contrary to my express directive endangers my son's ability to do those things necessary in the ordinary course of life without first confessing your number as an element of his identity. It's an injury to me, my wife, my son is grievous. Please do all that you can as fast as you can to relieve us of the daily grief and stress that has come about by the wrongful act I've complained about herein. Respectfully. Now, what I did is, since I'm the typist, I did this in a quasi business format. It's not full block or whatever, but I put this little symbol of my son-in-law's initials would have been where the hashtags are. And then my initials, the typist, are there. So we enclose the SS card. So this was the formal correspondence. And we cited and gave a copy of the procedure manual. And then William's going to give us some comments on this. But the result was, and I didn't go to their documents and get that letter they got back, but they had a letter that said, we're so sorry. We deleted your child's information off the record. Your child does not have a social security number. Okay.
Very good. Well, this was really well written. I mean, the only thing that I saw throughout the letter that struck me that I wouldn't say
Okay.
is he said right there, stop there at the bottom of prior to paragraph,
Okay.
third paragraph down. At the bottom, he says, I do not know how I could have been more emphatic. I would have said, I could not possibly have been more emphatic.
Okay.
You know? And
Right.
only
Whether you know it or not, it's not the statement you want to make.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to give them anything ever that they can use against you. And because just by merely making a statement like that, potentially you could get a response back that totally delays the process, feet shuffling, no action, someone trying to explain to you how you might have made it clear to them in a way that maybe you didn't make it clear because you weren't emphatic enough, you know?
Right.
So
I mean, that's good. So there's William's experience at technical writing in these matters, which are significant.
yeah, I mean, you know, it's this is difficult for anybody. And whoever wrote this letter, you said you were the typist. Did you author the letter or did you just simply type it?
I authored it.
Okay, yeah. So no wonder it's such a good letter.
And I didn't send it out. You know, I didn't send it out for, which is it's actually a good thing to do. But I didn't do is to send it to people who love you and care and can give you, you know, proofread it.
Right.
And whenever you can.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, everyone's heard the saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. And I'll tell you, part of my background in life is that I worked for a self-made multimillionaire, not in a law capacity, in a business capacity. And he was, you know, he was extremely meticulous to the point that everybody thought badly about him. Basically, they thought, you know, that everything was overkill. But what I learned working for him for 7 years is that he made sure of things, and he did a better job of it than anybody ever met in my life. And so, you know, when I initially started working as a consultant to him for communications, he'd call me in, we'd discuss a strategic business thing that was going on, and he would ask me to go and write a letter. And, you know, I'd go after 3 or 4 hours of talking like you and I are talking right now. I'd go off, I'd write a letter, I'd come back with this letter. And I thought, like your letter right there, I thought, whoa, that letter is good. That letter is really good. And he'd say, sit down. And we'd sit down and we'd talk about it for 2 or 3 hours, you know. And then he'd say, go rewrite the letter.
Right.
And
right.
So I go rewrite the letter. When I came back, I thought, man, that letter sure is a lot better than the first letter, you know. And for years, you know, I used to do that, and sometimes I'd rewrite a letter 6, 7, 8 times, literally.
Yeah.
Before it went out.
Yeah,
So,
and I remember the litigation we were assisting somebody in and assisting the lawyer. We were doing all the work, and the lawyer was messing it all up. It's horrible, but your product was wonderful, and I was so thrilled to see it. Now here's the letter they got from the Social Security Administration acknowledging the letter. Under the Privacy Act, there's 20 days they have to respond to you. Now, the one thing I want to show you here is, see it up here, it says TH1, and I blanked out a certain code because I didn't want to give the document number of this particular correspondence. But at least they actually showed the office code of the hierarchy within the Social Security Administration.